Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the idea of the body being a part of your daily writing practice, your creative practice. So compared to other creative practices like music, dance, or theater, even the visual arts, writing is usually thought of more as a mental activity than one that involves the physical body. In many ways, when you're writing, you're actually trying to forget that you're even in a body, that you are you. If anything, you're trying to almost completely exit your body and enter the story. In a way, you want to be dictating more than creating. You want to be able to just write what you're seeing in front of you rather than feeling like you're forcing it or that you yourself are constructing it. You want to be so immersed within the story that you can simply describe the smells, the sounds, the sights, the way it feels, the way things taste. Those are very good writing days. Now, unfortunately, not all writing days are actually like this. Sometimes you are very aware that you are in a body and that you are creating this thing, that you are constructing it. But those days where you are immersed are pretty magical and they're ideal. But here's something I have been thinking about lately. In the same way that an artist could smear a bit of paint onto their finger and then wipe it over a canvas, they're using their hand to create that art. And in that same way, we're using our hands to create our art because it's through typing and writing that we're able to create our stories. In the same way that hands are a medium for a visual artist, hands are also the medium for us because it's through those that we're able to transform the ideas into our head into a completed product, into a manuscript. But is this process of making meaning really the same for writers as it is for other creative practitioners? Is it possible that writers are maybe missing out on something that these other forms of art have access to? How would our work benefit if we were to intentionally make our bodies part of the creative process? And what would that even look like? Okay, I'm gonna get a little academic here on you, but in activist theory states that whether we realize it or not, we all use our senses, our hands and our body as a way to explore the unknown and as a way to confirm what we already know. We learn through action and we accumulate knowledge through embodied experiences with the environment. In this way, the body is pretty integral to all senses of knowing. So how does this relate to writing? Let's say that you're writing a scene and there's something going on, a particular movement that you need to describe, but you're not quite sure of the physicality of it. Maybe you can stand up and you can walk across the room in that particular fashion, or you can punch the air and then you see what does that actually feel like. And it's quite funny because in our mind we think we know what a punch might feel like. Maybe you were raised with a couple of brothers like I was, so you think you know what it feels like, but when you actually do the action, you can intentionally create or become aware of a particular sensation that you couldn't have come to had you not actually done that physical movement. Another example would be standing up and walking across the room in particular ways. Gliding, sliding, slinking, marching, amble, confident, scared. And then you can see how that feels in the body and how you could describe the physical movement and how it changes between all those emotions. And that is knowing in action. I've written a couple of articles before about the connection between walking and writing. You can find them in the description box below. But basically, when your body is in movement, it is easier for your brain to come up with creative ideas because when you sit down, your body thinks it's in relax mode and it has no need to be aware of the environment around it. It doesn't feel like it's under threat, so therefore it doesn't have to be alert. It's in relax mode. But once you start moving, your brain instantly becomes a bit more awake, a bit more alert, and that's why You'll so often come up with creative solutions when you're doing the dishes or the laundry or watering the garden, rather than when you're actually sitting at your desk trying to figure out how you're going to solve this plot hole. Studies have actually also shown that if you were to sit down and listen to a podcast, you wouldn't absorb the same amount of information as if you were to clean out a drawer in your office while listening to it or while you're going out for a walk. I mean, I don't know anybody who sits and just listens to a podcast, but it's a prime example of the difference between your brain's alertness when it's stationary compared to when it's in motion. Because here's the thing, our bodies actually contain knowledge. Just think about muscle memory and the way a musician can use it. A musician will sit down at the piano and play music without having the sheet music in front of them because of muscle memory. A ballerina doesn't need to think about how to point their foot, and an actor knows how to engage their diaphragm so that they can carry and project their voice across an entire theater. And guess what? This can also be applied to writers. For example, I'm a touch typist, so I don't need to look at the keyboard. Actually, I often don't even look at the screen when I'm writing, and that is also another form of muscle memory. You can very intentionally make writing a tactile act once you start negotiating with the work, and this can be done in a variety of ways. Let's say you're looking at the structure of the novel. There's a couple of ways you could make this a bit more of a physical and playful activity. For example, you could print out your entire manuscript if you have one completed, and you can lay all of the chapters out on the ground and then stand overhead and look at the layout and consider how you could potentially move those chapters around, and how would that change the story? How could you shuffle it from a linear story into a non-linear story and still have it make sense? You'll likely find that the story will be a lot more engaging, and more authors seem to be exploring this non-linear form of storytelling. Another thing you can do is write your entire outline onto play cards, again lay them out, and then shuffle those cards around as a way to play with structure. Now, this final suggestion is maybe a little bit quirky and it might not be for everybody, but print out a scene, stand up, and read your work aloud as though it were a play. Think about how your actors would move. Think about the tone of their voice when they say something. Are you actually depicting that in the novel? And if not, how could you describe it more vividly? Now let's move on to problem solving. About 6 months ago, I wrote a really great article on Cal Newport's idea of productive meditation, and I'll link it below. But basically what this practice means is that you go for a really long walk, at least an hour and a half, if not 2 hours, and think about whatever problem it is you're trying to solve. Let's say it's a plot hole in your novel. So while you're out on this walk, you're going to actively push yourself to stretch your thinking abilities to come up with a creative solution. Because here's the thing, so often we very quickly develop these grooves in our brain, this limited thinking of A plus B equals C, 1 plus 1 equals 2, and then you become really fixed in this certain pattern, and then when you're in this pattern you can't actually see any other solution, and you think your manuscript is just stuffed and you need to start again. And you don't have to. You just need to stretch that little bit of bandwidth and to try and come up with something new, and you absolutely can do it. But by moving your body, it's actually more likely that you'll come up with a creative solution because your mind is going to be way more engaged and way more alert. Another thing you can do is interview your characters aloud, like they're actually in the room. I kind of suggest that you don't do this at the public library or when anyone else is home. You can also buy or create a standing desk. I personally don't have a standing desk, so instead I usually pile a bunch of books onto my kitchen counter or onto one of my lower bookshelves, and that way I'm standing while I'm writing, and just by standing, your body, your brain is so much more engaged because you're balancing, you're often shuffling a little bit, I always find myself twisting and turning as I think, and I find that my writing comes easier when I stand. Now let's look at inspiration. Something you can do is fill a mason jar with a bunch of like little random words or prompts, and then pick out a couple of sheets and then write a short story or a piece of flash fiction from it. And this way, you're actually forcing yourself to respond to external stimuli, and again, you're engaging the body. Another way you can engage your body and find inspiration is to read while walking around your house. This is actually something I do quite a lot. For a really long time, I only read before bed. So now when I read during the day, I naturally start to get quite sleepy after 20 minutes. But if I stand and walk around while I'm reading, of course, I stay far more awake. And actually, this is a little tip. Because you're walking around and your brain is more alert, it's actually a lot easier to remember what you read. This is how I used to memorize my lines when I was in theater, and it's actually still how I continue to memorize my speeches and my presentations for conferences and stuff like that. Now, here's a little fun thing you can do. It's a bit of a mixed media type of thing, but you can write a little piece of flash fiction and then film yourself reading it aloud and then post it on the internet. In this way, you're writing your piece, but then you're also engaging your body with the actual reading of it, and then it becomes like a performance piece. Now, I'm going to get a little theoretical here with you, but in a way, our bodies can teach other bodies how to create art. After all, it was by reading books that I so loved that I decided to become a writer. And those books were written by the body of another writer that then inspired my body to create words, to create stories. The authors of those books both directly and indirectly showed me, using language and words, how to tell a story. Because the funny thing about storytelling is that it's all there like right on the page. It's there, but it's not there. You can see the words and the language and the structure, but you can also see the omissions. And in this way, you're able to dissect what's on the page and to figure out, okay, how did this author put it together? And in this way, the body has informed another body how to create art. As you well know, books are usually written in solitude while sitting down. But it was by attending classes with my lecturer and with other writing students that I was able to polish my drafts. It was during long walks that I was able to come up with creative solutions to plot holes. And it was through long walks that I was able to create solutions to really sticky plot holes. And it was by grabbing a bright red marker and going through the manuscript, crossing out sentences and writing in new ones, that I was able to finally lift the story to the next level. The way I see it, the body can become a part of the writing practice, but you have to maybe be a little bit more intentional than you would with other forms of art. But that being said, when you actively engage the body with your creative process, it can really help support and inform that creative practice. There you have it, guys. It's a bit of a different topic this week, but if you enjoyed it, please give the video a thumbs up to support my channel. You can also hit the subscribe button so that you're notified as soon as I upload. You can find more writing advice and reflections on taraeast.com. While you're there, be sure to join up to my email newsletter. When you do, you'll gain access to my free downloadable cheat sheet, 7 Ways to Stay Motivated as a Writer. My debut mystery novel, Every Time He Dies, is currently available everywhere. You can also find me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I so hope you enjoyed the video this week, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great writing week, and I'll see you again next time.